Good afternoon, ladies and gents, boys and girls. Welcome to another episode of AndymanCam's Garage. Today on my Kawasaki Versys, we're going to be changing chain and sprocket. Now, the obvious first step for any chain and sprocket manoeuvre is to take the old chain and sprocket off. So let's do that, I suppose. The toolbox is a horrendous mess. And to the other side. Oh, it's darker than Sauron's arse crack round here. Need another light bulb, I think. Marvellous. So in typical wonderful Japanese motorbike fixing fashion, there's two Allen keys on that side and two 10mm bolts on this side. Brilliant, isn't it? And then, don't know why I've still got this glove on, that's a bit silly. It'd be a good idea not to try and work on your bike in your riding gloves. What we need to do is pull this little up out of the hugger and the whole thing pops off. Stick that over there for now. Might even give it a clean before I put it back on. Look how much that's rubbed the swing arm there, that's ridiculous. Oh well, nothing I can do about that. Now to get the chain off, there's a few different ways you could do it. You could loosen the wheel in the rear axle, slide it forwards, that makes this all loose, pop it off the sprocket, and then remove the back wheel. Then you have the chain slackly on the floor where you can break it, pull it off the bike. On some bikes you can remove the swing arm and then the chain will actually become loose, but that's a faff because you've got to get in here. And also it doesn't work with this bike because, as you can see, the swing arm creates a loop and so the chain is actually captive, which was a bit of a pain in the arse because in the past I have bought chains which are delivered in a complete loop, so there's no need to break them or to have a chain tool or anything. You can just pop it straight on, but it's not happening this time. So what I'm going to do is, using my handy Rufwald chain tool, I'm going to break the chain while it's where it is, because as far as I can see it's held in place, it's not going anywhere. I don't need to worry about sticking it on the floor. I can just break it here, pull it out, and then get on with taking the back wheel out. This chain tool, incidentally, I bought from Lois from their floor market or flea market for the princely sum of €10, just because it's got these marks of use on it. Somebody's used it and then decided they didn't want it, but within 20 seconds of me crudding on this bad boy, it's going to look like that anyway, so I don't care. That's a €50 tool that I've bought for €10, and the best bit was the pressing pin was actually still sealed in its plastic bag, so that's brand new. Brilliant. And what this bad boy actually comprises of is a jaw piece which goes over the chain, and then this pin which actually pushes this pin through and out of the chain, thus breaking the link. So that's how it works in theory. Let's see how that goes. I found the master link here. It's always going to be the weak spot of any chain. Well, the weakest spot. I don't want to scare you by saying it's a weak spot. So, stick my jaw over there. Line this up with A, because that puts the pin in line with this hole, because it needs somewhere for the pin to go, obviously. Line that up with our rivet. I don't know how well you can see this. Just get it finger tight before I start cranking on it. Try and show you on this side so you can see the pressing pin, for want of a better word, is lined up with the rivet on the chain, and I'm just going to crank on this and that's going to push it through and out. Thus. How inconvenient for somebody to bloody chainsaw out while I'm trying to fix my bike. They know I'm trying to record a soundtrack in here. This is deeply important stuff. Right, there we go. I think that's just pushed the pin all the way through. Yep, pressing pin's gone all the way through the link there. So when I back this off, this chain should, in theory, split into two. Well, not into two. That'd be ridiculous. Still one, isn't it? There we go. And there's the rivet pin that was in there holding that chain together. Now at this point, you would have hopefully by now checked to see what state your sprockets are in, whether you need to actually change them, because lots of people would advocate that you need to change the chain and the sprockets at the same time, but quite often, as is the case with this, I had it running out of line for a little while, so the chain is knackered. The sprockets are actually okay. I'd say there's a good few thousand miles left in that sprocket, and with that in mind, if you were going to change just your chain and leave the sprockets as they are, a clever trick is to connect your new chain to the end of your old chain, just loosely using your master link. Just hook it in there and then pull the other end and it will pull your new chain into the bike without having to remove any of this stuff. And then all you need to do, connect your two ends together, off you go. But I'm changing the gearing of this bike, so I'm going to be changing the back sprocket. So I'm just going to pull the chain out and put it aside for some random use which I haven't really figured out yet. There we go, out she comes. Now I don't know how well you can see, but look here, see that? Just one example of one of the O-rings that's given up the ghost and popped out. It's dead, it needs to go in the bin. Stick the tool aside for a minute. So next step, the back wheel needs to come off. Whip out my split pin, loosen off the back axle. Okay, try again, loosen off the back axle. Take that right off. Stick it in my handy magnetic tray. Now, this is the axle, that goes that way, and then the wheel will fall to the floor. So using a rubber mallet, I'm just going to give it a gentle love tap. Rubber so that I don't damage the threads on the axle. And through it comes with the adjusting block. Now, I should be able to just pull this out and the wheel will drop to the floor. Okay, so that's the rear axle. Along with the spacer from the other side and the adjusting block from the other side. Oh, there's another spacer, gonna need that. Gently roll the wheel out of the back caliper. Careful not to damage any of your ABS lines or any of that nonsense. Right, that's gonna want to jump away, which is gonna potentially damage that ABS lead. So, at this point it would be wonderful to have a beautiful assistant to take the wheel away for you, but as I don't, I'm just gonna rest it down there. And then with the back caliper, if you look, there's a keyway in the caliper there, and there's a great big block of aluminium on the swing arm. So I'm just going to line those up and whack some electrical tape around it. Or as Ichiban Moto would say, some electrical grade assembly tape, just to hold that in place. I don't have to worry about it while I'm dicking around with the rest of the stuff then. Because the last thing you want is to be putting any undue pressure on your brake lines or on your ABS sensor wire under here. So if you damage any of those, you're going to be replacing expensive parts. Not interested in that. So here I have my back wheel, from which I need to remove this old sprocket, which is pretty simple, you know the drill. Lefty loosey, righty tighty. Bugger me, that's tight. Oh, that's proper tight. There's one. Now in the past I've had spare sprocket nuts, just in case anything were to happen, because these are specific nuts. They've got like a locking flange in there which stops them from vibrating off, but I'm going to risk it for today, and I've got no spares available, so fingers crossed I don't strip anything. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, and finally another 6. And with any luck, the sprocket here just pops off. Brilliant. Yeah, there's still a few thousand miles left in that. I'll keep that aside as a spare, and if I never get to use it as a spare sprocket anymore, I can use it as some kind of over-the-top ninja throwing star for when the zombie apocalypse happens. Let's clean this up a little bit. Okay, so that's all clean, ready to put the new sprocket on. And here we have the JT Sprockets 43 tooth aluminium rear sprocket, which fits perfectly, wonderful. And the original rear sprocket is 46 teeth, which even looks a fair bit bigger, and it's steel as well. This weighs an absolute ton. I would say this probably weighs less than a quarter of what the steel one weighs. And I know you're all screaming out at this exact moment, but it's aluminium. It's going to wear out in 5 minutes. But the way I see it, with the brakes on your bike, you don't put a brake disc made of toffee and hard brake pads in there. You have soft brake pads that wear out, and the disc lasts a lot longer. Because in this equation, I've got myself a D.I.D Black and Gold X-ring chain. The chain cost nearly 70 euros. The sprocket cost 25. So I would much rather that the sprocket wear out and the chain lasts longer than to have a super hard sprocket that knackers the chain in 10 minutes when you do what I did before, which was to run it wonky. Because this is the expensive part. So I thought I'd give the aluminium sprocket a go. I mean, let's be honest, it looks better for a start. It's all super shiny and it's super light as well. So that's a huge reduction in my unsprung weight, which, although minute and I'm not really going to be able to notice it, it's probably going to affect the suspension performance, the acceleration and the efficiency of the bike. It's all going to be so minute I won't know, but you know, when you know these things, it makes you feel like they're so much more than they really are. So anyway, sprocket's in place, 43 teeth, went dirty already, that's a shame. You can see there it's 7075 T6 aluminium, hardened anodized finish. It's made by JT as well, so it's a brand I trust. I wouldn't just buy any old nonsense off of eBay. But let's get the nuts back on. Before I do, I'm just going to put a little squirt of chain wax. For this stuff, it says Profi Dry Lube. Got really good reviews on this stuff for your chain. In an ideal world, that would be copper grease, but I don't have any to hand, so that'll do for now. That's more than anything just to stop the nuts and the studs corroding together, because hopefully it'll be a lot longer before I have to change this again, because hopefully I won't knacker this chain in 10 minutes by putting it in wonky. Although in my defence, and we'll talk about this in more detail a little bit later, I put the back wheel in wonky because I was following the alignment marks on the rear swing arm, but as you'll see later on, that doesn't work. A quick check of the Kawasaki service manual tells me that these should be tightened to 44 foot-pounds, almost exactly 60 newton meters. 60. And crank them on. Now I'm tightening these. If I do that one, I go opposite and tighten the one that's crossed on it. And then come to this one here and do the same, go for the one opposite. What this does is it tightens the sprocket on flat, which means you're not going to warp the sprocket or bend it or cause any stress fractures or distortions, all of which will destroy your chain in seconds. Just make sure they're all about right. There we go. There we go. That's ready to go. And now for a little bit of an aside problem that I have. Hopefully you can see this. But my adjusting bolt there is all rounded off because it kind of got a bit seized in the swing arm. So when I was about to leave to come back from England, I adjusted it as much as I could because the chain was flapping around like a prick in a shirt sleeve. And this just stopped moving, rounded itself off, and I just had to leave it as it was, unfortunately. Probably accelerated the death of the chain, if anything. That needs to come out. I need to stick a new one in there. Undo the stay nut, and then I squirted this with WD-40 a few times, but it doesn't seem to have got in there, so I might actually just squirt a bit on there, go and have a cup of tea and come back in a minute. Because the last thing I want to do is break that off and have to drill it out. That would really ruin my day. Okay, so that didn't work, so I'm going to try the old warm it up a little bit trick. I mean, this would be better with a blowtorch, but desperate times and all that. Hopefully the result will be the same, it just might take a little bit longer. Oh, we have movement. Work a bit more of this shit in there. It's moving, slowly. It's properly stiff though. I'm still worried a bit about breaking it off, if I'm honest. Try and work it back and forwards and get it a little bit at a time. The heat really did the trick though. I'm not out of the woods yet. It looks like it's bent or cross-threaded. Oh, that bolt is not in a good way. See how it's bent? From me crodding about on it. Well, that has rather changed the shape of today.